Hi, I'm Jessie Sage. Welcome back to another episode of When We're Not Hustling, the After Party. Today, the guest that we're talking about is Amber DeLice, and I will let my two co-hosts introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Melodie KG. I am a sex worker, consultant, nonprofit leader, writer, and provocateur based in Minneapolis.
I'm Emily Foster. I'm the producer of When We're Not Hustling and co-host here of the After Party, reminding you to like, subscribe, leave us comments, and share all of these episodes on your socials.
I had it was so interesting to me to talk to Amber about how she runs her, about the other business that she runs. It's also interesting to me to hear how long her dates are, like within, like I do
Mm.
overnights fairly, not all the time, but fairly regularly. I'll do overnights, but 3 days, 4 days, I'm like, wow, that's so intense. To have dates that are that long, and that's like the norm. And it's so interesting that's not the norm. That is her norm. It's it's
Yes,
I want to
yes,
make that
to be
clear.
clear.
It's so interesting to hear different people who run their businesses, because we tend to talk about things as like, sex work, we're all sex workers. But actually, like, sometimes I think that that umbrella can also be it's important for political reasons, but I think it can also be a bit like limiting because so many people like do their jobs in like such different ways that sometimes I feel like we're not talking about the same thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, 3, 4 days is a marathon
Yeah.
for sure. Um, but hearing about the other business that she runs with her immersive theater experience, like, first of all, I had never heard of that. Um,
It's so
but
in
it
yeah.
makes so much sense that those two things would go together and that like that would be her specialty is like creating these kind of long form like you know expressions of intimacy and connection and like helping folks, to kind of live whatever their best life is with her there as like a facilitator of that. Like it's beautiful and it's such an interesting crossover.
It was so unbelievable. That story that she told at the beginning about the trans person who was just coming into their identity and went on like that hike and had these conversation partners throughout. I was thinking, what would I give to like have that experience in my life? Like, how transformative must that have been to have a group of people create something for you for the purpose of self-reflection and transformation like that?
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like a movie
So
plot.
amazing.
Like
No.
Yeah.
just picturing like
Yeah.
this person going from a bus
No.
where like everything's pre-planned. There's like a plant there to talk to them, and then they get off the bus and walk down the sidewalk, and then there's someone else who's a plant who's like helping them talk. Like it just is like it's cinematic, it's
Yeah.
gorgeous, it makes me want to cry.
I know. I felt that way too. And the way that she talked about it, I had to stop because this idea of a conversational pilgrimage, we interviewed her a month or two ago, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about this, especially as somebody who like
Yeah.
long time did phone sex. Like that was my first like real stable thing that I did in sex work. For that host a podcast that you know, I love long sustained conversations, and the idea of a conversational pilgrimage, because voice, I think, is very intimate and conversations can be very intimate. And there's something about that kind of hit me on a soul level as important work.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Absolutely.
Mm.
I I don't do anything this complicated, but I do these somewhat involved scavenger hunts for my adult daughter, and uh, that we she lives in a small town where everyone knows each other, so it definitely lends itself to this. But there it's a series of uh, clues, and then the clues have to be unlocked, and they're generally
Oh,
some sort of riddle that you have to figure out. And there's various kinds of riddles, and some of them are, so they're different people can shine. But I always include the town's members, and so you have to go and give them the answer to the last riddle, for instance, in order to be handed the sheet of paper with the next riddle on it. And so there's this
for your daughter.
interactive space. And yeah, it is for a kid. Well, when she was really tiny, when she was a little person, I made it a minute. And so I would send her on scavenger hunts, and they got more and more elaborate as she got older. And then I think for like her 24th birthday, she asked if I would do a big scavenger hunt for her and her friends. And I was like, oh, of course. And I gathered I think we had like 30 people participate. It was great. And so I gathered all the teams, and I was like, okay, this is going to take like all day. Like, we're going to meet for dinner at my house at the end of this. And they all scoffed at me. They're all these 20 somethings, and they're like, this isn't going to take all day. I was like, okay, well, you guys, however long it takes you, if you get bored or if it's too hard, you just let me know. They came walking in, all of them. Just we had to like call them in, be like, it's dinner time. Come on. Like, it was, yeah, it was a lot of fun. But there's something in all of us, right? Where we're just waiting for that like Ferris Bueller parade to come by, just ready for us to jump on and sing our song, or, to have these experiences. Like,
Yeah.
everyone knew what to do. It was really interesting. They were like, oh, right, well, the shopkeeper will have the answer. Like, there was this
Yeah, it's
aspect of,
so fun.
and I, yeah. So just, yeah, as she was talking, I was just like, oh man, I could get way more elaborate than I have been.
I was thinking about how sexy that thing that she talked about with her client was, like the sensory thing. I was like, oh my gosh, can you
Yeah.
imagine like somebody that you're already attracted to, that you're already like having sex with, who was like made this huge surprise where they're like, okay, you're going to come in, you're going to do this, you're going to get this clue, then you're not going to be able to see me, but you're going to suddenly have my breast in your hand. I was like, oh yeah. I now
What?
I'm higher Amber.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
No, it was really neat. It was cool what she was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
loved it. I loved it. She inspired me to do a better job the next time I do something.
Husband used to be good at stuff like this. Like I not this elaborate, but like he was kind of romantic and he would do funny things. But some of them were funny and then some of them were really romantic. Like because we got together super young and on my 18th birthday he showed up and there were 18 wrapped presents in the car and like in the back seat, and every hour I got to like open one of them, which was very sweet. And then one time but then like it was funny because one time I wanted to go see Snoop Dogg because I'm like a Snoop Dogg fan, and I found out he was
Yeah.
in Pittsburgh, and I was like, "Oh, we got to go to this."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Did you know that Snoop Dogg is coming to Pittsburgh?" But I was more of a fan, and he's like, "Oh, okay, whatever." And then we had a date planned, and he went so far as to buy movie tickets to a movie that we aren't. He knows I'm nosy, so I was like trying to figure out what we were doing on the surprise date, but I didn't put together that it was the same day, as when I said this concert was. And then I found these movie tickets, but they were like to a movie that I wouldn't have liked. And so then he caught me being nosy because I was like, wait, we're going to this movie? And it turned out that we were going to see Snoop Dogg, but it was like very fun because he was like leaving these like hints all over that I was finding and trying to figure out what we were doing. And it was like, he
That's so cute.
and it was always fun because he would like send me on one trail and then I would get caught up. And I always ended up being a little bit bratty because I would be like, why are we doing, why would you think that I want to do this? I'm like doing exactly what I want.
That doesn't
Yeah.
sound like you at all, Jessie. That just, you must have grown out of that.
So,
I wouldn't call it bratty, though. I'd call it discerning.
yes, PJ would probably call it bratty. Um, I'm a little, I have my opinions about how things should be. And,
Sure.
uh, yeah, so that was always fun because it wasn't a scavenger hunt per se, but always these little like it wasn't just we wouldn't just go somewhere. It would be
Mhm.
we,
Right.
that was always kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I don't think like I love that she does all of that. I do like I was saying in the episode, I do like role playing and stuff with my clients sometimes, but I don't think I'm creative enough. Or maybe I just haven't had the space to be creative like this or the time or whatever, but like to do something like that. Like the idea of creating something that elaborate would probably very much stress me out. Like
Yeah.
on a provider level. Like I would love it as the person who it's for, but I think it
Yeah.
would
Right.
stress me out like doing it myself. I don't
I
know.
always wanted to do it for groups of people, like for, more than just my kid, like do it for corporate bonding experiences or,
Yeah.
other people's, birthday parties and just like
Mhm.
it's really once you start planning it out, like at first it seems really daunting. And then as soon
Yeah.
as you start the process, you're like, oh, wait, and this and this. And it usually ends up being a culling process. Like you sit down and you're like, there's no way I'm going to like occupy 40 people for 7 hours, and then at the end you're like, okay, well, we can't do this and this. Like we have to, it's surprisingly fun to start thinking about like, oh, what is the goal for this person or this group? And what do we want at the end of the day? Like there was a lot of challenges that I made where people had to take pictures with my daughter or spell out her name in different things. So at the end, she got these birthday gifts of having all these great selfies with her friends, and we did it for her food program and we had people spell out the food program's name in creative ways. And then they had that for socials and they could send all of those out, and it's like there's little things that start happening and you're like, oh, wait, right. Oh, and then we could, and it turns into this really fun thing. I don't know. I would love to do this for a living too. I need to do more of this apparently. In addition to all the other things I'm doing, I'm also going to just plan corporate scavenger hunts. It'll be great.
I love that. And like in thinking about like the the audience for that type of thing, like it's really clear like corporate retreats or like team building or like things like that. There's like a clear market for that, I feel. With um with what Amber does, I'm really curious about how people how people come to the conclusion that this is the thing that they want and how do they
Mm,
find it, right? Like
right.
you're going through maybe a thing, right? You maybe try a sex worker or you try therapy, maybe you're really like excited by like immersive dinner theater
Yeah.
and then like what is the where do you how do you and what do you search for, like what are
Right.
you googling to find this service, right?
And the story about the married couple was so cute where they had to play these roles and they had to pretend to like the fact that she was like, I'm an engineer for lingerie and which one looks more virginal is so
So cute. Like,
So cute
and
and
it's
so
so
interesting.
she gets like the feedback from her clients later that was like, man, you just set up the best sex for us. We had such great sex. I would feel so great if like I did created that for someone and wasn't there. And I was like at home and I felt like a puppet master. Like, I'm going to set up all the conditions for them to have the greatest fuck they've had in the last 5 years. Like, I would feel so great about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But you're right. Like, so that's a couple who's in some sort of rut. Like, okay, so maybe they go to the sex club. Maybe they hire a sex worker for a threesome. Maybe they go to therapy. Like none of that stuff is really working. And then they realize that they have it within themselves because Amber creates this thing for them where it kind of reignites their cash in or whatever. Like that's so neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
it's
but I don't
very
know.
cool.
I have no idea because I didn't know
I
that
know.
talked to
It
her.
remains a mystery.
Yeah, yeah, very cool.
Yeah, next time you speak to her, you'll have to ask and
Yeah,
maybe get Emily to be on their payroll.
yeah, yeah. The thing is,
It's not a bad idea.
like her world. And so I didn't want to be too like, what keywords do you use, to get to this because
Right.
I didn't want to dox her in any way, but like obviously, but like I am curious about that. It's so interesting. And the fact that like such a
Yeah.
variety of people do this, because she was talking about in that 16-person one, there was like somebody who did lighting design, people who were like writers,
Hi.
this thing where she was like thinking about like it's all the small details, like when that one couple, not the one with the lingerie, but the other one, I think that it would be very interesting to like the fact that she made the music so loud that they couldn't talk, but the woman would actually, instead of asking her questions, would have to just pick up a paintbrush and paint. Like that detail was so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really impressed by that like creativity. So I think that's really neat. Any other last thoughts about this one?
I don't think
Everyone should
so.
listen to it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the, it was, it, I understand what you mean. It stayed with me as well. One of the more interesting um, subject matters I think we've touched on, and mysterious, which I think is also fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Also, just like I just felt like, oh, I feel like I know that this is like very labor intensive and probably very expensive, but I also think that like most people should be able to have somebody do this for them at some point in their life. Like really think through, like
Yeah.
be that like I guess like the takeaway I would want to say is um I think that it made me think that we could think of ways to do very smaller scale things like this for our partners or our kids or, people in our lives that could get something out of it. I couldn't do this for my partner because my partner does not like surprises at all and would be like an anxious wreck. So not for everybody. But that there are a lot of people who would probably appreciate being thought of in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm Jessie Sage. This is When We're Not Hustling, the after party, and I'll turn it to you guys.
This has been Melodie KG.
Emily Foster here, reminding you to like, subscribe, follow us everywhere, share it with your friends. I don't know, shout it from the rooftops if you want.
All right. Thanks for listening.